as Paul gave me a great introduction, actually. So today I'm going to talk to you about my experience about volunteering for Leicestershire Police. But before I really get into what we exactly do, I thought it would try and set the scene a little bit and a bit of background about myself as to why for the last 8 years I've been a natural bridge, I guess, between the world of archaeology and the world of the police and the different languages that we both have and the different systems we have in place. So I'm an archaeologist. I specialise in maritime archaeology, and I currently work for a company called MSDS Marine. If we go back in time to 2006, after working for Wessex Archaeology for many years, I took a break from archaeology, applied the research element, and went to work for Leicestershire Police as a researcher. So this gave me a really unique insight as to how the police worked. I was with the police for several years before leaving to have children and then coming back as a Heritage Watch volunteer. 2 years later, I joined MSDS Marine, and I've been fortunate enough to deliver projects for them that are specialised in our heritage site security. So everything I do for Leicestershire Police on our terrestrial sites, I translate onto our underwater heritage. So my experience for volunteering is just with Leicestershire, so that's just my perspective for today. And each force tends to do things differently, as police forces do, and there's no national approach really on how each force needs to deal with rural crime, heritage crime, and not all police forces have Heritage Watch volunteers at all. So, how did Heritage Watch first come to Leicestershire Police? So in Leicestershire and Rutland, there are over 300 churches, and between 2015 and 2016, there was a lead theft crime wave. Roofs were being stripped in one night. Sometimes more than one church would be targeted. And if they didn't finish the job, they'd be back the next night to take the rest of the roof. The Bishop of Leicester was so concerned, he made a direct approach to the police chief constable, expressing his concerns on the churches and the communities they served. And later in the year of 2016, a small seminar was planned at Force Headquarters, which ended up with over 80 people attending. It had churches, Historic England, industrialists, scientists, academics, archaeologists, and government office. Hailed a success, this was the kickstart required to develop a national strategic action plan, which was the kickstart for Heritage Watch in policing for Leicestershire. This is us. So how do you become a Heritage Watch volunteer for Leicestershire? Leicestershire advertised on their website like you would for any other job. I applied using an application form, had an interview. The police deal with sensitive information, so you go through something called background vetting, and which can sometimes take a little bit of time if the forces are busy. And once that was all cleared, I had some training from Mark Harrison at Historic England, some crime prevention training from Leicestershire Police. All volunteers record their time for the police on Leicestershire use a system called Duty Sheet. From this, the police track how much time volunteers give and expenses and mileage are paid. So in Leicestershire, there are 7 of us. We've got David, myself, Giles, Jan, Roy, Ben, and Mark. So the scheme has been running successfully since 2016. We meet every 2 to 3 months, depending on projects, and we all have very different skill sets. So I'm an archaeologist. Some of us are archaeologists, some of us aren't archaeologists, some are battlefield tour guys, one ex-chief constable in the mix. It's all good. So as chair of the group, I also sit on other team meetings. So I would deal with the rural crime team links, the county archaeologist, the diocese. I'm kind of like that natural communication point, I guess. So volunteering isn't for life. Once you start, you can leave. It's optional. So from the original team, there are 3 of us left. So David, myself, and Ben are from 2016. We've got 2 new members, Roy and Mark, who joined. Oh, there's a pointy bit. There we go. Mark, and that's Roy. And they joined early last year. So when numbers drop, we have VIP, the VIP department, volunteers in policing, although Mark could probably come up with a better acronym for that, I'm sure. They advertise and then they do the interview process and we get new members joining us. So that's how Roy and Mark joined last year.
Volunteers in policing.
Volunteers in policing. No, I thought you'd come up with something more interesting. So how do we divide ourselves up for the whole of Leicestershire and Rutland? We basically pick points, basically depending on where we live locality. So I'm actually Nottinghamshire up here. So I generally pick up the north and we kind of divide it up amongst us, to be honest. But we always share with projects depending on skill set and what is needed. So, Leicestershire, unlike most police forces, heritage crime sits within the rural crime team. So this is a large umbrella and generally covers 4 categories of crime. So we've got agricultural, equine, wildlife, and of course, heritage. So these 4 titles cover 4 very large and diverse areas. Agricultural crime, for example, is thefts of farm machinery, fuel, damage to property, and livestock worrying. Equine crime, horses, tack theft, livestock worrying. Wildlife crime, hare coursing, poaching, interfering with protected species. Of course, we have heritage crime, lead theft from church roofs, damage to ancient monuments, and illegal metal detecting. We have rural crime also covers environmental crime. So then we've got illegal waste dumping, fly tipping, polluting of watercourses. So this is one of the reasons why heritage crime volunteers are so important, because in each of those 4 categories is a specialism in their own right, let alone putting them all together. So what do? We monitor all church and historic monument reported crime. We offer a second layer of response supporting local officers. We visit heritage locations to give crime prevention advice. We promote heritage crime prevention at events. We liaise with Historic England and other partnership agencies, particularly the Diocese of Leicester and the county archaeologists. We build relationships with our border forces because crime doesn't stop at the police border, and knowing what's going on around you gives you a bit of a heads up. Promoting proactive policing through education and outreach, and above all, raising the profile of heritage crime both within force and with the general public. Now that list all sounds very impressive, but what does it actually mean? So the Heritage Watch volunteers were originally put together due to the lead theft crime wave. So naturally, for the first couple of years, we really just focused on churches. So in the crime wave of 2016, as I said, churches are losing their roofs. Sometimes more than one church would be targeted. And if the whole roof wasn't taken, they'd come back and finish the job. So although heritage sits in the rural crime team, these churches often sat in the middle of the villages, overlooked by houses, in the middle of villages. So unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, depends on your financial point of view, roof alarms are the best deterrent against lead theft, but they are very expensive to purchase, and then there's ongoing monthly costs. So if churches don't have a roof alarm, the payout from the insurance company is less than £10,000, and a new roof costs to 70 to 100. Now, as a temporary fix during the crime wave, the police went to, if the whole roof wasn't stripped, as a temporary measure, we would install temporary roof alarms. So giving the church time, as they're often committee-led, to get and improve their security to try and protect the rest of it, which worked really well, to be honest. So how else did we help? We worked with the diocese via a liaison officer who sits on our heritage crime team, Simon Headley. He's now left, but he was amazing. Went through over 300 church records, no mean task, and categorised those who were high risk, looking basically those who had lead roofs versus if they had a roof alarm. We then divided this list by force area. But at the end of this, I ended up with about 14 churches, for example, who were high risk. This list was also shared with the neighbourhood policing commanders, so if lead theft went on the rise again, they would know which churches to target and resources to. We then directly approached these churches, offering them site security visits. As part of this, we developed a church risk assessment that you can see here. And I also have all of the flyers, I should say this now, that I have on my slides today. I have gotten examples with me, so if anybody would like any, please come and find me in the break. We would work with the church wardens to work through this and encourage quick wins. As churches don't have much money, we were giving them cheap, low-cost solutions. The wardens could also sign up. Leicestershire have something called Neighbourhood Alert. I'm sure each force does it slightly differently. And this is an email system where you can sign up to which categories interest you, and the force will email you if there's problems in that area. Unfortunately, it is a one-way communication system, so it's not perfect. So quick wins. Signage. This shows that the building is cared for and placed at the outer limits of the property, in theory, discourages thieves from getting too close. Lighting. People don't like to be seen doing bad things, so sensor lights are perfect for this, along with changing the settings of street lights so they don't go off at night, leaving those dark areas. Wheelie bins and tools should be locked up, as these can be used and are used to transport lead to vehicles. Churches should reach out to their neighbours, developing that kind of community, that communication network via WhatsApp or similar, so they can tell them when they're having works done, so they know who are legitimate workmen. I mean, these people are bold. They will put high vis on and stand on roofs and walk around like they literally own it in the middle of broad daylight. You should check which photos of the church are online. Let's use ones looking up, not ones looking down on our fabulous roof. Anti-climb paint and forensic markings are a valuable tool, and I believe most insurance companies insist on forensic markings as part of their insurance. Alarms and CCTV are the most effective methods of crime prevention, but they're also the most expensive. So raising awareness of heritage crime is one of the main methods of combating it. Police forces deploy resources based on statistics. And unfortunately, heritage crime is often underreported, and if it is reported, it's not flagged appropriately. If the stats don't show that heritage crime is a problem, forces can't put resources to it. At Leicestershire, we have a heritage crime flag. So when crimes are reported, the call handlers can highlight them as a heritage crime. And we also run heritage crime training for call handlers so they know what a heritage crime is. Unfortunately, call handlers have quite a high turnover, so it is an ongoing project. To help the call handlers, we also support church wardens in calling the police by providing them with a crib sheet. This one here. This means they're talking the same language as the call handler. Calling the police can often be very intimidating, especially for church wardens who are from the older generation. So we felt this empowered them and kind of gave the reassurance that the police do care and they are interested. We've also produced a newsletter, that one here, showcasing best practice from a church in Wymeswald who proactively put in a roof alarm because they realised the insurance payout wasn't enough to buy a new roof, so they just proactively did it anyway. It also showcases the best practice of the team and what we do. In February 2020, sneaking it in just before COVID, we held a conference for church wardens at police headquarters, focusing on the overview of heritage crime, basic security, risk assessments, CCTV, lighting, forensic marking, roof alarms, and importantly, funding sources. The conference room was full and over 80 churches attended, and it was hailed a huge success. We spend a lot of time raising the profile of heritage crime, both within the police and the general public. All the flyers and banners you see here, we've worked with Corp Comms to have designed and printed. The police have set standards, so it's not as simple as designing a flyer. You have to follow their design structure, work with Corp Comms to get the poster signed off and then printed. In 2021, we set up a subgroup of the Heritage Watch team to focus on illegal metal detecting, or night hawking as it's commonly known. The meetings were based in Rutland because the fines liaison officer is based in Rutland, and I really wanted her to come, to be honest. We also invited the local sergeant, local archaeology group, a key metal detectorist who'd got in touch with Mark Harrison and was interested in protecting our heritage, the community safety manager from Rutland Council, and of course members of the Heritage Watch team. The fines liaison officer had 300 detectorists on her database, and the group identified the need to raise the profile of night hawking with the landowners and that the police were interested. There was a massive thing that night hawking was happening, everybody knew about it, all the landowners knew about it, but they didn't report it to the police because they didn't think it was worth it and they just weren't interested. So the actions from this group, what did we do? We encourage best practice. Metal detectorists should have written agreements with the landowners with them so they can show when challenged by the police or the public that they have permissions to be where they are. From this group, we realised that we had no information leaflets on illegal metal detecting. They were all about churches. So we worked with Corp Comms to have one produced. That's a little bit of it here. I've got some of these with me today as well, if anybody would like some. The fines liaison officer and the archaeology group give regular community talks, so they introduce slides on how to report illegal metal detecting to the police, and obviously how to stash the leaflets. We wrote an article for the National Farmers Union raising the profile of the issue. We attended rural events. All fines liaison officers run fines days where members of the public can come along and bring their fines to have them identified. We publicised these, and she had a stash of our flyers and encouraged that relationship with the police. We reached out to the National Council for Metal Detecting, who now sit on our team meetings, kind of bridging that communication gap. This year, we're actually looking at hosting a conference for metal detectorists aimed at focusing on best practicing and building those relationships with the police. Now, as it turned out, this project was very timely because a Roman villa was discovered in Rutland and was announced to the world on Digging for Britain. Our fear was the site had been painted with a large target on its back. Okay, as you can see here from the geophysics, I prefer it if I do that. It shows a large Roman villa farmstead. The University of Leicester, ULAS, in conjunction with Historic England, ran 2 excavations over the site in the summer of 2022. It is believed the site comprises a main villa building, bathhouse, and agricultural buildings. I'll give a brief overview of it, and I probably won't do the site justice because it is absolutely amazing. So the geophysical survey suggests the principal buildings may be a double-typed corridor villa, with rooms arranged around an internal courtyard. Excavations suggested that several other buildings within the Rutland Villa may have also had mosaic floors. Excavations in 22 revealed a large hall located 50 metres from the main villa. It was probably originally a wooden barn, which was converted to stone during the 3rd or 4th centuries. One end of the structure was used for agricultural craft work, while the other end was an extensive domestic area with a bath suite containing hot and cold rooms. There is evidence of sophisticated underfloor heating that used different techniques to maintain varying temperatures and heating ducts built into the walls, very much like a modern-day spa. Focusing on the main villa, the team found fragments of polished marble, broken stone columns, painted wall plaster. Most notably is evidence of the mosaics in the corridor leading to the dining room, one of which is relatively intact and features intricate geometric patterns that probably date to the same period of construction as the Trojan War mosaic, which I'll show you in a moment. The new find suggests the state was older than previously thought, possibly by 100 years or more, meaning it was first occupied in the 2nd or 3rd centuries. Here it is. This is the world-famous mosaic that made the news. The excavation uncovered part of this mosaic, which was 3 panels portraying a scene from the Siege of Troy. It's about 11 by 7 metres in size and is unique in the UK. So it's featuring Achilles in his battle with Hector at the conclusion of the Trojan War. This is one of only a handful of examples from across Europe. It points to an estate owner keen to demonstrate wealth, Roman affiliation, and knowledge of classical literature. Now, as you can see, the site is of national importance. So what did we do to keep it safe so the archaeologists could do their work? In conjunction with Historic England, ULAS, the landowner, HE consultants Andy Bliss and Stuart Orton hosted a meeting at a village hall in Ketton, inviting all those interested in the site, from the Historical Society to the general public. We were very fortunate that David Harvey, a member of the Heritage Watch team, ex-Chief Constable and historic tour guide, lived in Rutland and was happy to coordinate the Heritage Watch project for the site. All members of the Heritage Watch team attended in support, and from the meeting, a group of 30 volunteers came forward to be part of the Heritage Watch bubble just for that site. David coordinated the group, conducting 17 site security visits over 3 months. There's now new fencing and additional signage around the site as well. Over the summer, there are 8 armadillo robots on the site who had motion sensors and report back any security breaches to a monitoring station. Now, you can see it here, and to be honest, I wish I had a better photo because they're ridiculously tall and look an awful lot like Daleks and sound like Daleks as well. But they're really very effective if they don't cost an arm and a leg to do so. The alarms were only triggered once, and that was turning out to be an animal, so they did their job. The volunteers did find some tools lying in a nearby stream, so they did their job, but it turns out they weren't an issue either. The archaeologists had put them there because the weather was too hot, if you can believe that. So they were put in the stream to swell the wooden handles so they could be used again the next day.
5 minutes.
Thank you. You didn't say that to anybody else. The site is now covered over and back under grass, but the Heritage Watch volunteers, although stood down, are still vigilant. This project is an amazing example of community partnership and cooperation. So here we have, Here we have Rupert Matthews, currently our Police and Crime Commissioner, but maybe for not for much longer. He is also a historian, so we've had fantastic support from him with some of the Heritage Watch volunteers. I've nearly finished. The police greatly value their volunteers, no matter what job you have with them. Leicestershire currently have about 600. They host a volunteers awards night every year In 2019, I was awarded the Community Engagement Award by Leicestershire, which was shortlisted from the 800 volunteers they had then, so numbers have dropped slightly. The event has evolved over the years, and rather than an evening event, is now an afternoon event at Force headquarters, and all volunteers who work over 100 hours receive a certificate recognising their time. Volunteering is a very rewarding activity. For people who'd like to find out more how to become involved, the Heritage Crime Special Interest Group are putting together an article which will be out shortly on how to get more involved.